In this Wild Hearts video, I want to give you guys my impressions of the game. I played about 10 hours or so combined between stream and off stream. I didn't have a lot of time to play this game pre-release or during the early access period because I was sort of out of town. But I've got to play a little bit now. People keep asking me, what do I think of the game? Is it worth the money, etc.? They see the performance issues of the game all over Steam and stuff like that. So I kind of want to give you guys my impressions based on what I've seen so far. So the first thing I want to talk about is the performance of the game. If you saw our preview of this game several months ago, this was my biggest concern. Out of everything I saw during the preview that we got to play, which was on PC, performance was my concern. I couldn't believe they were showing a build of the game for the first time that was playable to the public that was in such a state. It seemed almost like pre-alpha, not in a very good state at all, and I couldn't believe that's what they were putting forward, and that made me really concerned for the finalized state of the game. Fast forward to where we are now, people are complaining about performance issues, and even on console they're complaining about this. I want to talk about my performance of this game so far. On PC, I've been playing at 1440. I've locked my FPS at 60, and I have everything on max on a 2080 Ti, and it's been playing fine. I've had maybe a couple of frame drops here and there, nothing like too alarming. The biggest issue on performance for me isn't with the frame drops, it's really the poppin'. You see tons of poppin' in this game when you're running around. There's literally poppin' everywhere, and it kind of pulls you out of the immersion of the game, the amount of poppin' that there is. And graphically, the game doesn't look that fantastic at 1440 on high everything. So it's not the greatest looking game. It runs all right. I've seen worse. For instance, when we played Outriders at launch on PC, that game hitched like every 5 to 10 seconds, and that didn't go away at all through my entire playthrough of that game. There's nothing about this game so far that I've seen that's quite like that. Again, I'm only 10 hours in, so I don't know how the rest of the game will be, but there are some performance issues. Now, when you look at Steam and you see this like 33% rating, I think what you're seeing is a boiling point and a frustration that's boiling over from a community of players who are just tired of seeing half-done games at launch. They're tired of seeing a game that's being published in a state it should never be published in. This game could have been delayed a few months, and it would have given them the time to polish this and really make this product a little bit better in terms of runnability, because the game itself so far, from what I played, is actually really fun and good to play. But I think you're just seeing people kind of like overcorrect. They've had enough of what's happening in the gaming industry, and I think they're letting that be known on Steam. They're just like, fuck it, at this point, if I don't say something, it's never going to change. And so they're sort of trying to change that and really make it so that developers and publishers understand that they don't want to put up with that anymore. That being said, I haven't had a terrible time with this game running it on my PC. Obviously, I have a very, very hefty PC. Not everyone has that, so I don't know how it will perform on a lower end or mid-end PC. My guess is that it will probably run okay, but it might not look good at all. Talking a bit about the game itself, moving away from the performance aspects, which I think are really the big kicker here. The game itself is very, very fun. I've played co-op, I've played single-player. Co-op works seamlessly, and it plays a lot like Monster Hunter. Obviously, this is no surprise to anyone checking this out. I think the mechanics of the game are more simplified than Monster Hunter. It allows someone who's never played a Monster Hunter game before to kind of get their feet wet and wade in without knowing like what to do or having a previous knowledge of Monster Hunter. I think World took steps, Monster Hunter World, to allowing players who have never played Monster Hunter before to really get engaged with the game, but it didn't probably go far enough for a brand new player. I was a brand new player for Monster Hunter World, and I still needed help from people who had already played Monster Hunter to understand quite exactly what to do. Luckily, Fex is a huge Monster Hunter fan. She's been playing for forever, so she was able to give me a lot of tips and things, but if I didn't have that guidance that a lot of people probably needed for Monster Hunter World, I don't think they would have got into it as much as like I did. And I think Wild Hearts is even a gradient below that in terms of, difficulty and complexity. So it's really a good entry point for new players into the monster hunting genre. So if you're somebody who's looked at Monster Hunter and you're like, I don't know, that looks pretty overwhelming, or you've seen someone play, I think Wild Hearts is probably aimed more at you than it is at Monster Hunter fans or, people who are very, very veteran at that game. And one of the things I really love about Wild Hearts as well is your movement while your weapon is not sheathed. You move faster, you're more agile. I really, really like that. One of probably my biggest complaint with Monster Hunter World was that it felt sluggish when your weapon was out. And I know it's supposed to feel that way, don't get me wrong. I know why it's that way. But the whole time I kept thinking this is a Capcom game, because Capcom games typically have controls like that, and I really wanted a little more freedom of movement, somewhere between, you know, what Monster Hunter World has and what Dauntless has in terms of movement, and I feel like that's where Wild Hearts ended up, and I really, really like that freedom of movement where your weapon is out and not sheathed. That makes the gameplay a little bit more smooth for me, a little more seamless. I really, really enjoy that. And another thing that I really, really love about this game is the building mechanic that they've added, allowing you to build on the fly in combat. And I think it's what really separates it from Monster Hunter, in my opinion, besides the fact that it seems to be a little bit more simplified and an easier gradient for someone who's never played. This is the part that adds complexity to the game and really changes the dynamic of combat and makes it different from Monster Hunter. And they've done a fantastic job on this. It's very seamless. It's very natural. You can do it on the fly. It takes you a while to get your muscle memory and remember that you can do these things. And it has a deep crafting system in terms of what you can build structure-wise, both in and out of combat. There's a tree for it. And I really think that it's the thing that's going to intrigue veteran Monster Hunter players. The way that you're fighting, you know, changes based on what enemy you're fighting, and the structures that you use will be different based on that enemy. And allowing you to have like different strategies based on what weapon you're using, based on how they combine. Because you get like different attacks by jumping off structures or, you know, leaping forward on the spring pads, changes your attacks dramatically with each weapon that you use. So it adds like a whole new layer of combat. And I think that really separates it from the Monster Hunter series. And something that I also love that's kind of related to this is the fact that your world is persistent. Like everything you build in your map stays on your map. So if you go on a hunt, you build all these structures and they don't get broken on your hunt, then the next time you go out on a hunt, they'll still be there. And what's really cool is when you're playing like co-op and stuff, you can use each other's structures. So like if I build a wall and the enemy's charging into it or whatever and it doesn't break, then maybe my teammate can stand behind it and block himself or climb up it and jump off of it, or maybe he builds some crates that I can jump off or a springboard. We can share each other's structures, making it so there's a lot more going on the battlefield, and it's just really, really fun the way it's implemented. Something really silly that we did was we put spring pads all over the map so you can like just spring pad from place to place really, really fast, and since they stay there, every time you go out, it's just like whoop, spring padding around the map. And I think this is one of the things that's really cool. Being able to like create camps and things in different locations, build zip lines, it gives you kind of like a playground to play in a little bit more than Monster Hunter does, and I really, really enjoy that aspect. So all those things being said, I think it really boils down to is this game worth $70? I think there's no question about, in my mind, if somebody likes Monster Hunter or looks at the gameplay and always wanted to get into Monster Hunter but felt it was like a little bit too complicated or was a bit too daunting for them, that this is a game they should definitely play. I don't know that I would recommend doing it for $70. Just about everyone I know really wants to play the game. They just don't want to pay $70 for it. So I think that's kind of indicates, you know, where we are at it. If I gave you a code for the game, for instance, I think you'd play. You absolutely would, but you're not going to pay $70 for it. So I think at this point, the game needs a lot of patches in order to get its performance up to speed and to, you know, I don't know about bugs. I really haven't seen too many bugs in the game, but I imagine there are some as well, to really correct those and probably have that price point come down unless they add more content. You get like a Game of the Year edition or something like that a year or two down the road. But I really feel like it's a game people really want to play and a game you probably should play, but I wouldn't recommend doing it at $70. I'd recommend somewhere in the $40 to $50 price range where it's at right now. Maybe after a few more patches and maybe, you know, some content updates, maybe it'd be in that $50 to $60 price range. I'm not exactly sure. But I don't think I can recommend it at $70. I think that would be a little disingenuous. But it's one of those games that people want to play. There are games out there that you can give away codes for and people won't play them. But this is one people are actually asking me, like, do you have any codes? Do you have codes? I'll play if you have codes. So I definitely think people will want to play this if they're Monster Hunter fans. It's just a matter for what price. So what are your guys' thoughts so far on Wild Hearts from what you've seen? Does it look fun? It's really fun for me to play. It's just, I've had a ton of fun playing it. Co-op's great. But again, there are some issues with the game. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below.